With elections coming, many Californians may recall the state saw some failed recalls. One grassroots leader explains why the Los Angeles District Attorney recall wasn't successful and what the group should have done.
After the campaign to recall the Los Angeles District Attorney failed, groups have moved to take legal action against the signature verification process. But one grassroots organizer said that these steps could have been avoided in the first place. Mike Netter, vice chair at Rebuild California, explains to California insider C. Mac Karami why the recall of the LADA, George Gascon, failed.
It fails because of one of two reasons. One is either lack of resources or incredibly poor leadership. In the case of the Gascon recall, both recalls, which were pretty much run by the same group, didn't have a lack of resources. In fact, they had more resources than most political campaigns do, even on the Democratic side. So you have to look at it as a failure of leadership.
Netter says that if the motivation comes from collecting money and consultants taking money from the system, it would fail. He speaks from experience after helping spearhead the effort to recall Gavin Newsom.
But when money becomes the primary force in any cause or movement, and they refused actually to take advice from our group, Orrin Heatley and I started the recall of Gavin Newsom. And we learned many things on that journey as ordinary citizens. And the group which started it didn't want our input because they felt it was all about fundraising and didn't do really some of the basics.
According to Netter, the group behind the Gascon recall thought they could win through fundraising. Netter's recall effort had passion and organization.
So many movements, like the recall of Gascon, start by saying, let's raise a lot of money, because politics is trained to raise a lot of money, and so the cause becomes about spending a lot of money to justify the amount of money that you've raised, versus actually getting the job done.
Netter says the Gascon recall should have been about getting rid of a district attorney that doesn't give people the safety in their everyday lives.
To watch the full program, find California Insider on YouTube or Epic TV on the Epic Times website. With Election Day coming up in just a few weeks, on Wednesday, I got a look inside a ballot center as county offices prepare for the midterm election. On Wednesday, members of the Registrar of Voters Office in Santa Clara County gave the public a demo of the voting machines to be used for the November 8th election. They want the public to learn about the voting processes, security infrastructure, and how to vote.
We have many voters that have registered for the first time, and maybe they're a little nervous or scared to vote. But we show them how simple it is. We can show them here on our public day, or we can show them at any of the vote centers.
There's over 1 million registered voters in the county, and the vote-by-mail process has already started.
720 B2, FB24, 51.
The county wants to make voting easier and increase voter turnout, which Boucher says comes down to the propositions and who's on the ballot.
We will have 25 vote centers opening on October 29th, and on November 5th, we'll bring in additional 78 vote centers for a total of 103 vote centers for any voter to visit, to cast their ballot, drop off their ballot, be issued a replacement ballot, or receive any language services that they need.
We have 9 different languages we offer on the ballot.
Boucher says her department takes election security seriously. One of the measures is that the tabulation system is not connected to the internet, and 2 people are always with the ballots and voting equipment. She also said it's important for voters to sign the outside of their envelopes.
We can compare their signature on file to the signature on their envelope so we can validate it and then be able to open and tabulate their ballot that was enclosed.
She says accurate information can be found with election officials at the Registrar of Voters. Voters can track the status of their ballot at where'smyballot.sos.ca.gov. The Santa Clara County Register of Voters office said they already received 35,000 vote-by-mail ballots as of Tuesday. They're encouraging everyone to cast their ballots and do their part. Now, the last day to register to vote is October 24th for the November 8th election. David Lamb, NTD News, California. A Southern California county accidentally mailed duplicate ballots to 5,000 voters. The registrar's office says they will not be counted.
According to the Riverside County Registrar of Voters office, about 5,000 duplicate ballots were mailed to some voters in Riverside County. Apparently, it was a computer system error that mistakenly generated the duplicate mailing files. The error was discovered over the weekend, but the ballots were already delivered to the U.S. Postal Service. According to Registrar of Voters Rebecca Spencer, the duplicate ballots will not be counted. She apologized for the inconvenience. The office recommends destroying the duplicate ballot. Each vote-by-mail envelope has a barcode that gets scanned and accepted. It automatically locks the voter's record, so a person can only vote once.
Even though most tech users consider floppy disks to be antiquated hardware, one enthusiast has been in the game for years. He's made a business selling them to other businesses that rely on them still. It's been decades since people widely used them, but the iconic 3.5-inch floppy disk is still in demand. That's according to one man who claims he's doing a roaring trade and is believed to be the world's last bulk supplier.
People who go in the back of their warehouse and might find a pallet or two of the floppy disks and they're about to take them to the dump, they may call us up and say, hey, will you take these off our hands? And we say happily, yes.
73-year-old Tom Persky runs floppydisk.com, an online disk recycling service based in Lake Forest, California. He receives them from all over the world, both used and new, and then sends them out again to a steady and reliable customer base.
And here are a bunch of floppy disks, and when we get them, we have no idea if they're new or used or what. So we'll open this one up, and sure enough, here are used disks that we will reformat, put a fresh label on, and then hopefully resell.
Persky originally worked in software development for a tax company in the 1990s that used floppy disks. He fell in love with the business and took on the floppy disk portion when it spun off.
There are a lot of people in the tool and die business who use floppy disks. They have this big equipment that you have to get the information in and out.
Along with the embroidery industry, they also have a large number of airline customers.
Most people don't know that about a third to a half of all of the aircraft flying today were built 20 years ago. And if you built a plane 20 or 30 or even 40 years ago, you would use a floppy disk to get information in and out of some of the avionics of that airplane.
The entrepreneur shows off a true relic of the computer age, the 8-inch floppy disk.
So some people think of this as a floppy disk and they think this is really old. If you think this is old, take a look at this. This is a floppy disk from the 1970s, and we have literally thousands and thousands of these.
He says some of them work, some don't, but that overall, floppy disks are reliable, stable, and not hackable. Persky's warehouse is a treasure trove for nostalgics.
I'm just going to grab a couple of these, and they have somebody's information on them. We can make that information go away with a degausser. That's a gigantic magnet, which is going to make all of the information disappear. Humpty Dumpty cannot put this back together again.
Next, it's the labeling machine.
And this is my favorite machine in the whole place. I'll say ready, and I'll hit start. When I see the save icon, I see a floppy disk, but most people just see the save icon. And the joke is that, you know, when a 6-year-old girl runs up to her father and with a floppy disk that she found somewhere, she said, "Oh look, Daddy, somebody 3D printed the save icon."
The floppy disk connoisseur sells about 500 of these relics a day. Persky says he knows that times have changed, but that he'll be around for as long as people want to have the disks.